Yes, good morning and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. It's another beautiful morning. It's a beautiful day out here in Kampala, Uganda. It's 12 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. that we are coming to you live this beautiful morning, yet again to discuss the very latest from the world of football, from the world of transfers. Plenty is going on, plenty is taking a place. Club friendlies or pre-season friendlies are reaching their climax really for most clubs, as well as transfers continue to take shape and center stage during the course of the summer, as well as the African Nation Championships are back here in East Africa. They also continue to take shape. Unfortunately for me, my country, Uganda, was at the very end of a thump of a 3-0 thumping at the hands of Algeria yesterday. But we do look forward and think that perhaps on Friday we can pick the slack up and we will do face off with Guinea there. We can only wish the Uganda Cranes the very best and that they can put in a better shift. Hi, Pedri. Good morning to you. How are you doing? How is your beautiful morning? If it is morning already for you, it's a quarter past the hour of 9 a.m. Here back in Uganda. So thank you so much to every single one of you that managed to catch last night's podcast. Rodrigo, Pedri, Testa, and every single one of you guys, Viresh, and every single one of you that managed to catch last night's podcast. Thank you so much for being part of that episode. You say it's good, very good. It's 7 a.m. there. That's good to know. That's good to know. So, anyways, this morning we will be back at it at speaking transfers and football in general. I was catching at some of the highlights from that game against Barcelona. Again, no much surprise. They did look good. They looked sharp. And for the small chunks that I've been able to catch about Barcelona, they've looked like as though for them they are already into the season. It's not really felt like it's pre-season for Barcelona for huge chunks. For the parts or episodes that I've managed to catch them, sometimes you watch a preseason game and it does feel like a preseason game. That it's a warm up, it's a build up to the big occasion that is the season that is yet to come. But in as far as Barcelona are concerned, from what I've been able to see, they've been really, really serious about their business. It's not to say that others have not been serious, but for them, they look like it's already the season is already on, and perhaps that communicates or stands to communicate what Hansi Flick has in store for us going into next season, that he wants to compete for that UEFA Champions League title among every other piece of silverware that they could be. Mr. Tribe, Neymar scored 2 goals yesterday. Oh, thanks for that update. For one, I can only wish Neymar the very best. One, because I'm a Brazil national team fan, predominantly because our own country, Uganda, has never made it, to the World Cup. So I'd always sought to, find a team that, I could pay allegiance to when it came to that stage of football. And for me, it has always been Brazil. And to hear that he did score, the 2 goals, I can only hope that he stays fit until we get to the, FIFA World Cup in 2026, which I believe could be his last major tournament to feature in the colors of Brazil. For all the great talent he is and for all the goals he scored for the Brazilian national team, beyond that Copa America tournament, it's not really counted for much. So I can only hope. Anyways, let's continue with the conversation. Let's continue with the conversation. But for those of you that are just joining us, I do hope that you're all doing well. I hope everything is going good for you. Do let me know where you're joining us from this beautiful morning, whether everything checks out perfectly for you. But yeah, we will be talking transfers, and for me, it's coming to that point, especially prior to the start of the season, where if your team has not yet done any business whatsoever, or it has done very minimal business, you must feel for it, and you should understand perhaps the frustration that may come with the manager. For example, I look at teams like Everton. They've not done much. They've done some business, in the transfer window, but it's not plenty. I look at teams like Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, the other day, the manager was complaining or was voicing his discontent with Steve Parish. He didn't call him out, but at least with the club of officials who are led by Steve Parish there, because he said he only has, 16 players to his disposal. And I remember watching, there's a friendly game that I was trying to catch a glimpse of for the highlights. And he only had the starting 11 plus 6 players on the bench. I do not know. And for me, it was a bit surprising. I did wonder to myself, don't they have any academy players that you could call upon to sort of be part of this, to get them, some drills out and to, give them some minutes and see if any can break through to the first team squad and that kind of thing, because preseason is partly that you get some of your outstanding academic talents and give them, a couple of minutes during preseason and see what they are really, really capable of. I think in any case, that's what we've seen for most teams, and that's when you get some of these players to get out on loan to maybe a certain level of teams that can afford them a more regular playing time, so that they fast track their career. So yeah, I can see somebody's Selim Ahmed says Zuba best, Zeneti super. Thank you so much, whatever that means. I'm smoking a cigar and drinking coffee and watching your stream. Wow, on this beautiful morning already, a cigar. Anyways, we all have our indulgences, but thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pedri, for chipping in. So in the work of teams like Crystal Palace, that's what I think. As much as it's, and by the way, I think what's more frustrating for Oliver Glasner and his side is that there's all this world of speculation surrounding some of their players, especially those players that you think they should be counting on going into next season. And that's a player like Magpies, because he's refused to sign a new contract. And that's a player like Ebeleche Eze, who's been heavily linked with the potential move to Arsenal. Tottenham Hotspurs are interested, So it really doesn't help when some of the standout players in your team are being linked with a move away from the team, and yet in the market you've not made headway in terms of recruits, which we all know that Crystal Palace really, really need, whether it is at this stage or at a later stage, but they needed them as soon as yesterday. And again, we cannot overemphasize the importance of a preseason when it comes to these teams' preparations for the subsequent season. We've had all these calls from wherever and all over the place that managers always want these players to come in a little early. Why? Because it helps them prepare adequately and see how they fit into the team. We all read the reports, almost the desperation that it was for Mikel Arteta to try and get in his striker as soon as possible, because he wanted him to be significant, to be part of that pre-season, so that his team can prepare, and see how they adapt with their system to playing with the kind of striker that he, whichever it was going to be. And so when you look at a team like that, and knowing that they're going to be playing in Europe for the first time, that's Crystal Palace, knowing what the responsibilities will be going into next season. Of course, survival being one of those. Because when you're a team like Crystal Palace and resources are not at your disposal in large chunks, because you're looking at a team like Sunderland, who've only been elevated to the Premier League just this season. And you look at the kind of business that they've been able to do, you also get, of course, including extending their manager's contract. That's Brice. So you look at all that, what they've been able to do. And if you're a Crystal Palace fan, you can't help it wonder. You can't help it feel a little bit envious of what they've been able to do. And you look at your team and say, look, we're going to be competing in Europe. We have to play every Thursday. We have to play every weekend. How are we going to juggle that with a very thin squad that is of about 16 players, perhaps 18 if we were to get in, a couple of youngsters back in, and yet we also stand the risk of losing our star players in Magpies and ability is. So yes, the reason as why they can lose them is because they are bigger teams that want them, and for a team like Crystal Palace, as long as you get the valuation for your player, you do not want to stand in their way because you appreciate that the club that they are possibly going to is a step ahead compared to your own. So you must give them that chance, to go out there and compete at the highest of levels. And in this particular case, or in the case of Crystal Palace, it doesn't come any less than that. It is what it is. This happens even to big teams. It's just happened to Liverpool. They did not want to let go of a player like Luis Diaz, but eventually the player wanted to leave, so they decided, why not make the deal? We won't hold you back. We've seen it with Manchester City over the years. They do not stand in the way of a player who wants to leave. They do not do that. Pep Guardiola is one who wants to work with happy players. Tamant House says, so must we judge the score results of the preseason? I think it's a yes and no kind of question or answer to that question. You can't judge them in whatever context you may perceive of them. So, for example, if your manager is playing preseason games and predominantly fielding youngsters who he thinks they should be getting minutes, and he sees what they are made of, whatever the result may be, it may be hard to judge. But if your manager is constantly fielding your best 11, or at least 3/4 of your best 11, then if results are not going their way, you're going to judge them in a certain way. And while you may judge them, it may not be as harsh as if it were in the season, because you also will appreciate that it's preseason. They've just come back from holiday. They've been rusty. They've been more relaxed. They're yet to get into that momentum of playing constantly. Basically they are picking up the slack. Because in any sport, usually you go in the sport, or you go in a game with momentum. Take it from let's say marathon runners, as opposed to sprint runners, because we all know that football, in its nature, given the way seasons are structured, it's a marathon. So you get to start a season, and you've seen how certain teams tend to begin. Some teams begin slowly, and then they go into the season, while others begin on a high note and then sometimes fizzle out in the course of the season and then bounce back like that. For some, which are sort of unique cases, it starts with a flash and it goes on to be like that almost to the tail end of the season. And those are teams that tend to go on to win titles. So Obote Emi says, hi Obote Emi, where are you joining us from this morning? It's a pleasure to have you on the broadcast. You did ask the question, how far would the issue of Benjamin Sesko to Manchester United? That's what we are going to discuss in a bit. Manchester United have always had a good preseason. Then you saw what happened. Yes, it's upon part of that basis that to which I say yes and no, because sometimes just because you've had a good preseason does not guarantee that you're going to have a good season. It usually does not translate to that. However, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So, and yet we all know that preseason is essentially that. You are trying to prepare for the season ahead. So, if you fail to prepare, then you prepare yourself to fail. So, look at a team like Crystal Palace, and I'm not saying they're going to fail, but by the measure of what they've been able to do so far in this transfer window, which is not very promising, it doesn't give much confidence to their fans going into the new season. Of course, then you begin to think, do we have to rely on the tactical prowesses of our manager to get us through the first couple of games? Because we're talking about what? Today is 5th of August. We're talking about 9 days left to the start of the Premier League season. And and out of those players, given how injuries sometimes happen, assume you have to lose 5 players to minor injuries, here and there, that causes them to miss, let's say, the first 3 weeks of the season. Remember, we're going to start the season, play 3 games, and then we'll go into the September international break. that will last a period of a fortnight before we return, and then we will return and then play another 3 or 4 weeks, and then go into the October international break. So if you're a team like Crystal Palace and it comes in the event that it's unfortunate for you like that you have a narrow squad and then sustain quick injuries, how are you going to favorably compete right from the onset? Because I believe it will be after the first international break that then we will start, that then teams will start their schedules in Europe. So it doesn't really give you a lot of confidence. Particularly to go back to the example of Manchester United. It's not unique to Manchester United. When they go on to have a good preseason and then have a bad start to the season. Because sometimes also the quality of opponents that you do face in preseason matters. I'll give an example. I don't know if you've noticed, but look at Manchester United. The preseason has predominantly been a composition of Premier League teams that they faced. I remember when the season ended, after that game, 2-0 victory against Aston Villa, they flew out to Asia and they played 2 games. They won 1 and lost 1. Now, the reason as to why they did that preseason tour was due to commercial reasons, because they made about 7.9 million pounds from that tour, but it was more of a commercial tour because some of their players had to travel to India to do some commercials. I think it was Onana, Maguire, and Diego Dalot that were supposed to do that because they have a deal with Apollo Tires and things like that, So part of preseason is also commercial, It has a commercial element to it, the destination that teams tend to go to, and that kind of thing. Then, when it comes to the quality of opponents, now look at Barcelona. They've been, scoring goals for fun in preseason. Now, would it surprise you if the season starts and they are not able to replicate that form? Personally, it wouldn't surprise me because of the quality of opponents they've been facing. Why? And allow me draw these comparisons, as I know they will have other games. Manchester United have had so far they played 4 games in preseason. I forget the ones they played immediately after the end of the season. They played 4 preseason games against Leeds United, which was I think a goalless draw. They played against West Ham, beat them by 2-1, beat Bournemouth by 4-1, and drew against Everton. Now, when you compare that quality of opponents, regardless of who they may have fielded in those respective teams, and compare it to the quality of opponents that Barcelona have been facing, you'd say that Man United have possibly faced stronger opponents in their preseason preparations as compared to Barcelona. Does that mean that Manchester United are more ready for the season than Barcelona? It may not necessarily mean that, but at least for the case of Manchester United, they are facing teams that they are already going to beat in the Premier League. So, by the time Manchester United face off with Everton, I do not know at what stage in the season, Leeds United or West Ham United or Bournemouth, I think they already have insights. And the mere fact that they've prepared against those opponents, it helps Ruben Amorim because that's where he's going to be competing predominantly. They are in the Premier League. They'll have to wait for the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. In years gone by, look at a manager like Pep Guardiola. He's been really, really intentional for part of preseason to face Premier League, to face English teams, especially teams that play with a low block, teams that are a bit physical. A couple of times they used to play Burnley. Why? Because he wanted to have that measure of how he would compete against such teams, or teams with similar profiles when it came to the Premier League, So that's the insightful part to it. So while having a good preseason does not necessarily translate to having a good start to the season, oftentimes the kind of opponents or level of opponents that you do face really, really matters. Look at Arsenal a couple of seasons back when they've had good starts to the season. At some point, they faced teams like Barcelona. They were facing teams like Real Madrid in preseason. Those are quality opponents that give you a good measure of where you do stand, as opposed to, let's say, facing the K-League 1, 11. No face to such teams. I think you and I could agree to a certain level that maybe a team like FC Bournemouth or a team like West Ham is stronger an opponent as compared to Seoul FC, or Visokobe that Barcelona have faced. Not, and this is not stick to Barcelona because, like I said, a pre-season has commercial elements to it. It has reasons as to why teams face the teams that they do face. Look at a team like Liverpool. They went out and played. They played AC Milan, very good opponents. They went to Japan, and part of that trip is more of commercial. They played Yokohama Marinos, over there in Japan. Now, yesterday they played against Athletic Bilbao. They won that game by 3-2. But look at the quality of that game, the kind of challenge that Liverpool were given on the day. In that respect, you may be able to appreciate the size or the kind of opponents that your team may face during pre-season. Look at Arsenal. They faced 2 Premier League seasons in their pre-season already. Newcastle and Tottenham. That's a good measure of opponents. Now, they've won one of those games. That's 3-2 against Newcastle and lost to Tottenham. Now, that result against Tottenham, for those of you that do remember, the regulars on this channel, I said I was happy in a way that Arsenal lost because it showed Mikel Arteta what more he needs to do to fix his team. Particularly because of how Tottenham played. They played with a low block, and Arsenal continued to exhibit the same problems they have been facing for the last 1 to 3 seasons when it came to breaking teams that play with a low block. So it communicates to him while he says he saw positives, which I could equally acknowledge that there were positives. But what I saw predominantly is that Arsenal continued to struggle to break a team that plays with a low block. So that's part of how I would look at that. Everything Capi says, it worked out 69 million, so it's not a problem with 7 million add-ons. Eweku Sam, hi Eweku Sam. Eweku Sam, your name sounds a little Ugandan. Are you from Uganda? Similar to that of Obote Emi, who asked us about Benjamin Sesko. So to wrap this whole thing up about pre-season, we all know that a good pre-season preparation is very, very good for teams. One, it prepares the players, one, physically to be ready for the start of the season. Two, to psychologically be ready for the game as for the start of the season. Because once they are not prepared physically and psychologically, then that will affect them. But just because you lose games at the start of the season does not mean that you are ill prepared for the season. No, sometimes the opponents you face are just better than you. Or, for example, if the season starts and Arsenal and Man United beat up against Arsenal, we won't say it's because Arsenal had a bad pre-season or a bad preparation to the season. Or if it's vice versa, we won't say Man United had a bad preparation to the pre-season. Iwako says, I'm watching you from Uganda. Thank you so much. I'm equally from Kampala, Uganda. That's where we are coming to you live from. And thank you for joining this broadcast. Please consider liking the broadcast, but also subscribing to the channel and help us grow to 2,000 subscribers. It's a pleasure to have you around. Same applies to everything Kapi as well as Oboti Emi. I didn't know where Oboti Emi is joining us from. He didn't let us know, but I hope wherever he is enjoying himself. Let me go to Obote's question, which regards to how far with the issue of Benjamin Sesko to Manchester United, and particularly, which is the gist of our conversation this morning. We will get back to the Chan Championships in just a bit. Manchester United, I do not know what's really going on because at the end of the day, we only consume what is being put up by the media beyond, unless you're so deep within the ranks of Manchester United that you're privy to what's happening. Now, for days, we've been getting reports that Manchester United were preparing their official bid to RB Leipzig for Benjamin Sesko. That bid has not come. And that came at the backdrop of all the reports that were coming throughout from Germany, that the player would be open to joining Manchester United, even over Newcastle, even if they are without European football. Now, I think it was yesterday or the other day that I was speaking about the strength and advantages that Manchester United do have in this contest when it comes to the pursuits of a player like Benjamin Sesko versus what Newcastle's strengths or weaknesses could be. And a part of that, I did say that when it comes to resources, when it comes to paying wages, Manchester United are very capable of matching whatever Newcastle is promising to pay the player and possibly even surpass it. Two, when it comes to club history, Manchester United and Newcastle cannot be put in the same bucket, cannot be even compared. I think it will be a miss. It will be unfair to Manchester United to compare them to Newcastle when it comes to club history. With all the pedigree. I think 5 UEFA Champions League titles, 20 league titles, 13 of them being Premier League titles, and then the 7, of course, coming from the year before. You look at all that history. I think about 13 FA Cups won. So you look at all that history and compare that to Newcastle, and obviously Man United are miles ahead. So if those are some of the things that attract the player, or that the player weighs on before making the final decision, then clearly Man United should be the front runners in signing, Benjamin Sesko. But also, when you look at the potential of the project in assessment, where Manchester United do stand at present day versus where Newcastle do stand at present day, you'd say the Newcastle project looks a bit more exciting than that of Manchester United. So that's a positive for Newcastle. When it comes to European football, Manchester United do not have that this season. It's not to say they're not going to have it next season or the season after that. But Newcastle have it at the moment. They have UEFA Champions League football. And I say that on the basis of the fact, how many times are we told that, a player wants to leave club A for club B because this club has, Champions League football, because they want to play in the UEFA Champions League football. For those of you that I remember, allow me to use the context of Christian Nogan. Once he joined Arsenal, particularly beyond everything that Arsenal is of an attraction to all players coming from, lower teams, he did speak about the UEFA Champions League. He read his hearing at the UEFA Champions League anthem. Of course, he had to take a dig from, rival fans for that, because he said he wanted to listen to the UEFA Champions League anthem. But I think they were trying to take him out of context. He was essentially saying he is eager to play in the UEFA Champions League. So if we would have been told that day in, day out, then Newcastle have that in present day. Manchester United can only have it in imagination of what's to come, possibly the season after the next. We're talking about 2026, 2027. And even that, there's no guarantees that they will qualify for UEFA Champions League football. So while there's no guarantee that Newcastle will qualify for it again the season after the next, or after the coming season, it stands a better chance compared to Manchester United in their present circumstances. That's what I would say. You tell me the players Manchester United you tell me the players Manchester United has bought. Out of those players that they've already bought, we all know about Matthias Cunha, we all know about Brandon Mbomo, we all know about Diego Leon. Those have been the main incomings so far. Those have been actually the only incomings. With Diego Leon having been assigned in January and left out there on loan, so he just recently joined. So far we are looking at Brandon Mbomo and Matthias Cunha, which are very, very significantly good additions. And I'm sure if you managed to catch a glimpse of Manchester United's pre-season friendlies, or if you haven't, Diego Leon has looked really, really very, very exciting so far from what I've been able to see. So, in the context of Manchester United's pursuit for Benjamin Sesko, the truth is they have yet to place a bid, an official bid. They did inform RB Leipzig that they were preparing their official bid, but that bid has yet to come through. And Newcastle, who placed already the first bid, and that bid was turned down. That bid was in the region of 80 million euros, 75 million euros guaranteed fees, plus 5 million euros in expected add-ons. Now, we were being told that the 75 million euros as guaranteed fees, that was the price quoted by RB Leipzig, but the 5 million in add-ons, plus a future sell-on clause, and the payment structure overall did not meet the terms of RB Leipzig to their expectations. So that bid was essentially rejected. Now, Newcastle placed in a first bid, it's rejected. Man United, what we are getting, are preparing the first bid. It's gone on for ages. What happened last night? I think we are doing this broadcast last night when Newcastle put in their second official bid. And that exclusive came through David Austin of the Athletic, who said Newcastle United made an improved bid to RB Leipzig for Benjamin Sesko. The new offer is worth at least 80 million euros as guaranteed fees after positive talks. So that's for the 22-year-old Slovenian striker. So from what we are getting from the whole of last night is that Newcastle's new bid is believed to be in the region of 90 million euros. Now, again, Manchester United, just gone by, are capable of blowing that kind of fee out of the water. They are capable of coming to the table to say, we are offering you 100 million euros, we want a player, and, you know, of course, their bid would have been bigger, so it would only be understandable if he ended up at Manchester United with that kind of bid. So, and in the work of submitting that bid, Newcastle are now confident of reaching a full agreement with RB Leipzig. However, they are yet to reach a full agreement with the player. And by that, they are yet to get the green light because they've given the player a 48-hour ultimatum to say, either you tell us yes within the next 48 hours or we move on to other targets. Because in Newcastle's defense, they've missed out on so many number one targets this summer. So if they were to miss out on Benjamin Sesko, it would be a huge blow, but it wouldn't come as a surprise, you know, because it's something they've had to go through in different iterations of targets so far this summer. You remember Joao Pedro, Liam Delap, Brian Mbomo, and, you know, those kinds of things. So they've gone through it all. And most recently, the goalkeeper in James Trafford, who chose to rejoin Manchester City as opposed to going to Newcastle. So you look at all that. And for Man United, I must say, it's not looking positive at this stage. The advantage for Manchester United is that the player has not yet given that green light to Newcastle, you know. But however, some reports do suggest it's to the contrary, that the player has already signaled he is open to joining Newcastle. Now, what's a fact here is that he's not said no to Newcastle, neither has he said to Manchester United yes. That is definitely. However, both clubs seem to be operating on positive signals. How do I paint this picture for you? Assume you're quoting a girl. You know, she's not said, a girl or a woman, sorry. She's not said yes, but she's giving you hope that at some point, perhaps in the near future or later, she will say yes to you. So basically, that's what Man United and Newcastle are dealing with when it comes to their pursuits of Benjamin Sesko. I think it was yesterday, but one, that we did receive reports that Newcastle had improved their offer on personal terms to Benjamin Sesko. And all that was geared toward to win him over to the Magpies, as opposed to having him go to, you know, to Newcastle, you know. So, sorry, as opposed to him going to Man United. So, okay, they're just trying to entice him, but it's not yet over the line. So, while they remain confident that they will reach an agreement in principle with RB Leipzig, they will also want to get that yes from the player side and fast track this deal and get it out of the way, because we know there's an Alexander Isak whose situation needs to be resolved as soon as yesterday. One, Ed Howe is trying to communicate that the club won't be bullied or won't be strong-armed into accommodating the player who has been disrespectful or that has behaved in a poor manner. And by that, he did say something like, you cannot behave poorly and then expect to be part of the main group in training. So in other words, he's trying to tell Alexander Isak, you cannot request to be excluded from our preseason and then go out and train in Spain at the Zubizieta facilities at your former club, Real Sociedad, and then suddenly think your return to St. James's Park, your return to St. James's Park is going to be a smooth ease in, as if nothing happened. So that's what he's trying to communicate. And if he is trying to communicate that, where does that leave the relationship between the player and the club? So it only signals one way, that Alexander Isak will leave this summer. It's not cast in stone. Situations change, circumstances change. For example, Ed Howe could easily get a call from one of his bosses to say, I know this is not an ideal situation, but reintegrate the player back into training. We've had these things before. A player acts out of character, and the manager seeks to penalize them, and then their hand is forced, or the manager's hand is pushed to acting maybe contrary to what they would have loved to act upon. So that's the situation when it comes to Benjamin Sesko. Newcastle continue to push. They really, really want to get this deal over the line as soon as possible. So, according to multiple reports, the total package for Newcastle is worth 90 million euros, 80 million euros as guaranteed fees plus the 10 million euros in expected add-ons on table. I think the reason as why Newcastle have increased this offer beyond what has been reported that RB Leipzig had asked for in guaranteed fees at 75 million euros to increase it to 80 million euros is perhaps they want to negate on that option of including a feature as sell-on clause in the player's deal should it go through, because usually a future sell-on clause is inserted in some of these players' contracts to say if you sell them for profit, we need 20% out of that sale. We saw that in the wake of Victor Gyökeres at Arsenal. We've had of similar reports in the wake of Arsenal's interest for Ability Iza from Crystal Palace. Apparently, Queen's Park Rangers, which was his former club that he left in August 2020 to join the Eagles, do have a 20% sell-on clause. So, and that kind of thing. So, Coventry had a future 15% sell-on clause with Sporting Lisbon for Victor Gyökeres, but prior to the sale of the player, I think it was in January or sometime before that, 5% of that future sell-on clause had been bought out by Sporting CP. That's what we were getting, and it was reduced to a 10%. So, I think Newcastle, in increasing their offer to 90 million euros, they are trying to negate that. So just imagine, for example, that let's say Liverpool were to buy Alexander Isak for 120 million pounds as guaranteed fees, and let's say Real Sociedad had a future 20% on clause, sell-on clause. What would that look like? If that would mean that Newcastle would stand to pay about 24 million pounds to Real Sociedad if Real Sociedad have a future sell-on clause that is worth 20%. So if let's say that sell-on clause is 15%, then that means that Newcastle would have to pay 18%. 18 million pounds to Real Sociedad in future sell-on clause fees. So these are things that tend to be in players' contracts. RB Leipzig want that to be part of that deal. Napoli insisted with Victor Osimhen's move to Galatasaray that they include a future 10% sell-on clause. Now Galatasaray were reluctant to insert that, but eventually they came down to it. And among the conditions is that they cannot sell Victor Osimhen to any Italian club in the next 2 years. Two, if they do make a profit on the 75 million euros that they are going to pay Napoli in the next 1 year for signing of Victor Osimhen, then Napoli get to make a 10% of that. So if let's say 2 years down the road, let's say Galatasaray sells the player maybe to Juventus for 80 million euros, or to Inter Milan, or to the Saudi Pro League for 80 million euros, for 100 million euros, then that profit, which would be 5 to 20 million euros, 5 to 15 million euros, actually 25. So 5 to 25 million euros, depending on what the final transfer fee is, then Napoli would get a 10% of that profit. So that's the kind of structure of the deal. But Manchester United, it's not really looking pretty at the moment. So they did confirm to RB Leipzig that they will bid for Benjamin Sesko if he picks them. And again, this boils down to the player's decision. And that's why Newcastle are saying, please, we want your final decision within the next 48 hours so that we know. And unfortunately, this does not really favor Newcastle because what? And the reason as to why it doesn't favor them is because should the player turn them down, it means they have to move on to other targets. Now, because they've bid in the region of 90 million euros, whichever player they go for next after, if Benjamin Sesko unfortunately turns them down, that selling club is going to set a higher fee for them because they know they are capable, are paying top dollar for whatever their next target could be. And according to multiple reports, the next target could be Goncalo Ramos at Paris Saint-Germain, the Portuguese forward. So let's wait and see. But that's the situation to do with the deal for Benjamin Sesko. He is yet to give final word to any of Manchester United or Newcastle that it is you that have chosen, because Man United are waiting apparently for that answer from Benjamin Sesko to say, I'm going with the Red Devils. They do not have Champions League football, but given the history, given the magnitude, the size of the club that it is, I'm going with the Red Devils. And then the Red Devils will make an official bid to our bids. Or they are waiting to hear that it will not go for Manchester United. I'm joining Newcastle. Regardless of what they say about the weather in Newcastle, I'm open to joining them. That's my next destination. That's where I'm going. So basically, that's the situation when it comes to Benjamin Sesko. But let's wait and see how everything will transpire in the next, I think today and tomorrow will be very, very crucial in seeing what kind of direction this deal eventually takes. Then moving on, Manchester City are set to offer a new contract to Rodri, valid until June 2029. That's the Spanish holding midfielder. He could become the second best paid player after Brad Erling Haaland. Decision up to Rodri if he does want to stay with Manchester City. Yesterday, I did inform you that Manchester City had agreed a contract extension in principle with Ruben Diaz. That's the 28-year-old Portuguese defender to renew his contract until I think June 2028, because his current deal was set to expire in June 2027. So that's what's happening at Manchester City. That's in addition to Nico O'Reilly, who they managed also to get to sign a new contract amid strong interest from teams like Bayer Leverkusen. Then also Everton did submit an official bid to Chelsea to try and sign Kenan Grisbury-Hall. We've been told their offer is in the region of £25 million, with future add-ons rising to 27 or to a total of £28 million. So, which I believe is a bit expensive, given that, he's hardly played enough for Chelsea. He's been a bit of an impact substitution kind of player. But yeah, it is what it is. But when you compare that to what Southampton are demanding for 19-year-old Tyler Dibling, then you must really acknowledge that, yeah, maybe the fee is suddenly worth it. Sam says the transfers for Man United, I think we've spoken about that. Can you talk about who will get relegated next time? That's Timan Taus. Let me ask that in a bit. Big football tribe and chat. How are you? Your knowledge and intelligent, intellectual, articulate, good communication, and know your stuff. What team do you support? You never walk alone. That's Spirit of NFC. Leeds United, Burnley, Sunderland get relegated. That's the prediction of LFC. In responding to an earlier comment by Timantaos, who says, who can catch Frimpong from Liverpool? What a player. Okay, let me respond to those comments. First, I'll start with the teams that I do expect to be relegated. At this stage in the season, so far, I do feel that Brentford is one of the relegation candidates, particularly because of the so many changes that seem to have gone on at Brentford, and we have no guarantees until the end of the transfer window that it's going to be the end of them. So far, on my relegation speculation at the moment, and this could change. So if you do come back in the future and it has changed, before you get me, listen to the reasons that I may have given. But so far, at this stage, at this moment, I think Brentford, I think Sunderland, I think Burnley. Those are my relegation candidates so far. However, I still feel that Crystal Palace may struggle a bit beyond what I had initially predicted. If Bournemouth continue to lose more players, they could struggle a bit. Remember, they've already lost two of their backline in Bitthausen and Milos Kakes, and yet Tottenham and Paris Saint-Germain continue to push for Ilya Zabani, the 22-year-old Ukrainian defender. So eventually, all signs show he could move. They are losing the goalkeeper Neto. He's going to Botafogo on a 2-year contract. Apparently, there's no reported transfer fee because Bournemouth want to get him off their wage bill. He's one of the top earners at the club. So while they've signed the goalkeeper in George Petrovic from Chelsea for £25 million, if they continue to lose one or two more players, it could be a bit of a struggle for them. I'm not saying they will be relegated, but they could be a struggle. So, but at the moment, it's Brentford, it's Sunderland, and Burnley. Those are the teams so far at the moment that they do expect to get relegated are going into next season. If you have a different opinion, please let me know down in the comment section. At the man, you say Brentford, wow. And particularly, now you look at Brentford. One, I thought they lost the biggest asset in the manager, Thomas Frank, who has kept them in the Premier League for the last 4 seasons. Remember, they came into the Premier League season the debut campaign was 2022, I think 2023. Then 2023, 2024. No, actually, it was 2021 when they came into the Premier League. So 2021, 2022 was the debut campaign. You remember that opening game when they beat Arsenal by 2-0 at the GTEC Stadium because Arsenal had asked that game be rescheduled because they had about 3 or 4 of their senior players infected with COVID. Their COVID tests had come back positive. So the Premier League, of course, rejected that, and they went on to lose that game, and Mikel Arteta was so furious. But anyways, fast forward. So for the past 4 seasons, Thomas Frank had been able to keep them in the Premier League, and last season particularly, they performed really, really well. They tried to compete for a place in Europe. Never mind that they eventually never got to it. So Thomas Frank is the biggest asset that they've lost. Now, they've gone on to lose their captain in Christian Nogard, and that's a huge loss. 2, they've gone on to lose their top scorer from last season in Brandon Mbomo, scored 20 goals and provided 7 assists. That's a huge loss to their forward lines. Newcastle is targeting Yohan Wissa. Tottenham are also interested. Yohan Wissa was their second top scorer last season. He scored 19 goals and provided 4 assists in the Premier League alone. So if they were able to go, if they go on now, at the moment, they've closed the door on Yohan Wissa. They do not want the player to leave because they've already lost Brandon Mbomo, but the player has informed the club he would want to leave. Now, at the end of the day, I have a strong feeling that by the end of the transfer window, Yohan Wissa may have left. One, he had that gentleman's agreement that the club had promised him that they would allow him to leave for about £26 million when Ivan Toney left for Al Ahly in the Saudi Pro League for about, was it £40 million plus? So Newcastle have come in for him. He wants to join Newcastle because Newcastle have UEFA Champions League football, and also at the age of 28, he gets to sign possibly the biggest contract of his career because at the age of 28, I'm sure, I think you and I can guarantee that Newcastle have the capability to double his wages, whatever he is earning currently at Brentford. So he looks at it in that way. It's not different from what Brandon Mbomo has had to go through. You look at the stage where they are and the club that they are coming from. We did hear reports that Brandon Mbomo was at about £45,000 per week. So that's in part why the player wants to leave. Now, if he does eventually leave, that's one too many changes for a team like Brentford. Who has replaced Thomas Frank? It's Keith Andrews, who had not too far back, had only joined the club as an assistant, as a headpiece coach. So he's now been handed the keys to the kingdom. We do not know how he's going to fare tactically with the team. We do not know his capabilities. So he's a bit of an unknown quantity at this stage. And for me particularly, that's what puts Brentford in the relegation conversation. They could surprise us and go on to be out of it, right from the onset. But I do feel that they could get relegated. Then the other question was to do, okay, what team do I support? First, I'd say I support football.
And track every change.
Apologies, guys. We had an internet glitch. I hope you guys can rejoin. I hope you guys can rejoin the conversation. But yeah, I had an internet glitch. Internet dropped, unfortunately. But let me continue to answer some of your questions as they've been stated. So I hope you guys can rejoin. Should I give you a moment to see if you can rejoin? But we will continue to answer those questions. But I think I've answered the Brentford question and the relegation teams. I was going on to the team that I do support. That was the next question that I was asked. So I do support Arsenal. I do support Real Madrid. Those are the teams that I do support. But like I said, for me, I do support football first. So football comes first. Then who can catch a Frimpong from Liverpool? What a player! Yes, I did watch Frimpong, and I must say I've been really impressed with his pace. His ability to run back from attack has been quite impressive, and also of course, I do not think we've seen enough to make the strongest of conclusions, but based on what we've seen so far, I think it's really good. Both, especially going forward. Of course, he had one of those very loose passes. It wasn't loose, but it was an overplayed pass. I think he was trying to get Planwitz and Gakpo on the ball in that, but his pass was a bit overplayed. Then also the other question is Brentford finished 10th last season. They strengthened Milambo, Kayode, Kelleher, Donovan, and Henderson. They are good players. New head coach Keith Andrews, he is good. I mean, I've not seen, like I said, I've not seen anything of Keith Andrews to arrive to that conclusion, And yes, they brought very good players, the way you've highlighted them. And it's no doubt, it's no doubt. But, getting good players in and having them play as a team or fit in well is one thing, are two different things. You could get good players and fail to have them play as a team. Let me give you an example. Do you remember? I think it was about 2019. Actually, around the summer of 2018, after the FIFA World Cup in Russia. You remember at the time, I think Nottingham Forest was it Nottingham Forest or Aston Villa? It was Aston Villa, actually. I think they had been just promoted back to the Premier League. Should be. And they went on to sign many players. Mohamed Trezeguet, he was at Egypt and those and the likes, but they did struggle. They did struggle. Dean Smith was the manager at the time. Dean Smith. So they came from the championship. That's 2018-2019. They came from the championship. So when they come from the championship, they signed a great deal of many players. And it did not really work out with Dean Smith. He eventually was sacked at some point. Of course, they brought in Steven Gerrard. Things burnt his fingers. And that's how they ended up with Unai Emery. So buying good players is one thing, and have them fit well in is a whole another. Kelleher is a very good goalkeeper. He's replacing Mark Flecken, who left to join Bayer Leverkusen. Jordan Henderson comes in as a free agent. But I mean, Henderson, do you think you're going to see the Jordan Henderson you saw at Liverpool to be the same player at Brentford? I certainly do not think so. Antonio Milambo, very good player, yes. Romel Donovan from Birmingham, good player, yes. Michael Kayode, good player from Fiorentina, yes. But let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. But I believe because among the players that were also released was Benmi at Anthony Yogani. So that one went out on loan to Dundee. But and the key factor in this argument, is has to do everything with the manager. Because if Thomas Frank had stayed at the club, even though they would have lost, Mark Flecken, even though they would have lost Brian Mbumo, even if they would go on to lose Yohan Wissa, my view about them wouldn't be the same. So, and that's what I do feel on that. And then you say, okay, Spirit of Arsenal, Leeds United, Sunderland, Burnley, those are the ones going down. That's your prediction. I don't know. I have this sneaky feeling that if Daniel Faki changes or adapts his playing style to the Premier League, then they may stay in the Premier League and that they may survive relegation. Then Aras says Ronaldo or Messi. I usually do not want to reduce the debate on football about that. For me, it's a neither nor. I do not want to, because usually when you pick one over the other, because usually the people that tend to ask this question usually want the simple answer of yes, it's Messi or it's Ronaldo for me. No, the moment you get in that kind of position, it's as if to suggest that the other player is too weak that cannot be compared to this one, And yet, I believe they're very, very great players, living legends of the game. At the age of 38 for Lionel Messi and at the age of 40 for Cristiano Ronaldo, they're still smashing it. They're still banging it at Inter Miami and at Al Nassr, respectively. So, yeah, for me, great players. You are sitting in the fence like a true politician. I'm not politician. I'm not a politician. But anyways, thank you so much, Spirit of LFC fans, for that. LFC M4X says, yes, Robert, I'm back. It's good to have you back. I'm watching from Spain. How is Spain this morning? Pedri was asked earlier on. He was telling me he was busy sipping a coffee and, while taking in a cigar on this beautiful, Tuesday morning. But it's a pleasure to have you all guys around. Thank you so much for your input to this debate, to this conversation. Thank you so much for your questions, to I do appreciate them a great deal. Thank you so much for the information that you bring henceforth to me, particularly. So yeah. Then Nicholas Jackson is increasingly likely to leave Chelsea, and this is something that we've discussed before. Is increasingly likely to leave Chelsea. Suitors in the Premier League include Manchester United and Aston Villa. So far, are the outright known ones, and abroad as well are considering the 24-year-old if they do not land their top targets. So lose exiting player or not, alongside the current options, Chelsea sells completed and agreed at £200 million plus, with 100 to 150 more expected. So Chelsea are on a clearance sale, and part of that has everything to do with them being sanctioned by UEFA for being found in breach of the UEFA financial play rules. I remember they were fined about 30 million euros, and with a further 60 million euros should they fail to honor that agreement that they do have with UEFA in place. They were not the only team sanctioned. Barcelona was one of them. Aston Villa was one of them. Panathinaikos, Besiktas were some of the other teams that were sanctioned for being found in breach of the financial fair play rules of UEFA. Then quickly, what have we missed? We did speak about this yesterday, but let me mention it again. Chelsea did agree a deal with Burnley for the transfer of Leslie Hugo Ekcheku. That's the 21-year-old. Can play as a deep line midfielder. That's the number 6 or as the number 8. Then Everton did improve their offer to Southampton for Tyler Dibling. Their initial bid was £27 million. Now they have a new bid that is in the region of £40 million. But the expectation remains that Southampton will still turn that down for the 19-year-old. I've said I do not believe it should be costing more than that, but it's just a difference of opinion. Then Stuttgart are pursuing a deal to sign Fabio Vieira from Arsenal, while FC Porto had a bid that turned down for Arsenal's Jakub Kivio. That bid was believed to be an initial season-long loan with an option to buy for about with an obligation to buy for under 30 million euros, which Arsenal essentially turned down. Then also, what's the other key news that we have missed? But Chelsea are on a massive clearance sale. But while they are on a clearance sale, they also continue to bring in players. So do not be surprised if you see new faces still coming in. They remain in pursuit of Alejandro Garnacho and Xavi Simons for Manchester United and RB Leipzig, respectively, after recently completing the deal to sign Joel Hato. So that remains in the works. Then quickly, let's get to the latest from the world of transfer gossip and speculation and hear about that, because plenty is happening, and this is as compiled by BBC Sport when it comes to transfer gossip and speculation. And Newcastle are set to revive their interest in signing England defender Magpies with an offer of about £40 million. Remember, Liverpool are the other team that are interested in his services. In January, the Crystal Palace turned down a £55 million bid from Tottenham Hotspur to sign the England international, who has rejected a new contract proposal from Crystal Palace, so they are looking to move him on and to find replacements quickly. Then RB Leipzig is Slovenian striker is playing, apparently, this is according to Bleed in German, is playing Newcastle and Man United offers against each other in a transfer poker. Then manager David Moyes wants 6 more signings to Everton, including 2 central midfielders and 2 wide players. That's according to the Telegraph. Then Tottenham Hotspurs have been told they will have to pay at least €30 million to sign Spanish midfielder Marc Cardoso from Barcelona, who is also target, by the way, for Real Betis. That's according to Sport in Spanish. Then Brazilian winger Rodrigo wants to stay at Real Madrid amid its interest from Tottenham, Liverpool and Arsenal, while Crystal Palace face competition from Juventus for Girona's 22-year-old Spanish right back and now Martinez. That's according to Total Sport, while Napoli and Sweden midfielder Jens Kajutsi at 25 is leaning towards a return to Ipswich Town rather than a move to Burnley or Saudi Arabia. That's according to Gianluca Di Mazzario. Stuttgart are working on a deal to sign 25-year-old Portuguese midfielder Fabio Vieira from Arsenal. That one will be discussed. While FC Porto were interested in Jakub Kivio but are unwilling to meet the €30 million asking fee from Arsenal. Then Tottenham are looking to sell Mali midfielder Yves Bissouma, 28, to free up space for 25-year-old England midfielder. That's Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher could leave Atletico de Madrid this summer. Atletico de Madrid have made some significant, additions to their team, including Almada, Alex Baina, Johnny Cardoso, Matteo Rotegi, and I think one other player. But also the Atletico de Madrid have been on some form of clearance sale from their team to try and renew that squad. Then also, quickly, Liverpool are keeping tabs on Republic of Ireland and Brentford defender Nathan Collins, 24. That's according to BBC Sport. While West Ham have submitted an improved offer of £10 million for Botafogo 29-year goalkeeper John Victor, was previously also linked with the potential move to Manchester United. Bayer Leverkusen want Manchester United is Rasmus Højlund, but first competition from AC Milan, Inter Milan and Juventus for the Danish striker. Atlanta could make a move for Crystal Palace's 28-year-old French striker Jean-Philippe Mateta if they fail to agree a deal with Fulham. for Brazilian forward Rodrigo Muniz. That's according to Sky Sport Italy. Rodrigo Muniz was also a target for two other Premier League sides. I think it was Burnley and Leeds. Then also a Portuguese centre back that we've spoken about, Ruben Diaz. Sunderland and Wolves are showing interest in Borussia Dortmund and Norway defender Julian Ryerson at 27, according to Sky Sports German. So, guys, that's the latest from the world of transfer gossip and speculation. I want to send my special shout out to you, Pedri. Thank you for being part of today's podcast. Selim Ahmad, thank you so much. Selim Ahmed, thank you so much for being with us. Timan Taos, it's always a pleasure to see you around. Obote Emi, it was a pleasure to see you. First time on the broadcast. Everything Kapi, thank you so much. Eweku Sam, the Manchester United fan, it was a pleasure to have you join the podcast. Then Spirit of Liverpool fans, thank you so much for always sparing the moment to be with us. Aras, it's been a pleasure interacting with you today, as well as LFC. Thank you so much, guys. Let's meet again today during the course of the day for further discussion about your favorite teams. But before I sign out, guys, the African Nations Championships that do continue today with two fixtures on card. Of course, we'll have Congo, the Republic of Congo. They will be facing off with Sudan, while Senegal will be up against Nigeria. That's at 8 p.m. While the other game does come earlier on at 5 p.m. East African time. So do keep your eyes peeled to those games as well as we enter match day 2 very, very soon. In yesterday's results, like I said, Uganda were at the end of a 3-0 thumping at the hands of Algeria, while Guinea beat up against Niger by a goal to nil. So those are the updates from the African Nations Championships. For those of you that may be interested in learning some digital skills, do not forget to check out our friends at Able State. I'll leave their link down in the description. They do offer in-person training and online training sessions for those that are interested in learning cybersecurity, web design, and coding. So do check them out. You do qualify for a 5% discount should you choose to enroll with them. They are based in Kasanga, Kampala, Uganda, and they do help their trainees find jobs in the dynamic digital world at their end of trainings. So it's been a pleasure doing this with you guys. Allow me a sign out and get to my other duties, but be sure we will be back on here to discuss more and the latest from the world of sport and transfers. Then I'll look to give you a run through some of the deals that have so far been completed for all your clubs in terms of outgoings and incomings as compiled by Sky Sport. I'm looking for a moment to get that done in one of these days. Perhaps it will formulate a part of our lunchtime broadcast. But let's see if we will find time to do that. Otherwise, thank you so much. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye for now.